Hey, I'm really glad you're here. No, really, I mean it. Because if you've ever stared at something you wanted to do and just didn't, this is for you. That project you keep pushing back, that email sitting in your drafts for a week, that dream you talk about but never start, yeah, we're going to talk about that. But not the usual way. This isn't about hustle or morning routines or fixing you with a checklist. This is about something deeper and softer. Let's start with a story. A few years ago, I had this idea for a podcast. I was excited. I mean, really excited. I planned out episodes, made notes, watched tutorials, but every time I sat down to record, I froze. I'd check my mic, reorganize my desk, change the lighting. I told myself, I'll try again tomorrow when I feel more ready. Tomorrow turned into a week. A week turned into 3 months. And guess what? I never launched it. Not because I didn't care, not because I was lazy, but because deep down, I was scared. I was scared that no one would listen. Scared that my voice sounded weird. Scared that people would roll their eyes and think, who does she think she is? So instead of facing that fear, I avoided it. But here's the thing. That fear didn't sound like, I'm scared. It sounded like, I'm tired. I'm not in the mood. I'll do it later. That's how procrastination works. It wears a disguise. And the worst part? When you keep avoiding something day after day, guilt shows up. You start saying things to yourself like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just do it? Maybe I'm just lazy. But laziness? That's not the problem. It's not even close. Most of the time, procrastination isn't about time at all. It's about emotion. It's about fear, pressure, self-doubt, perfectionism, shame. And when those emotions get heavy, your brain wants one thing: relief. So you scroll, you snack. You clean your kitchen instead of writing that thing you care about. Not because you're lazy, but because your brain is trying to keep you safe. It's protecting you from failure, from rejection, from the pain of not being enough. But in doing that, it also keeps you stuck. Let me tell you about Sam. Sam's a friend of mine, smart guy, creative, big ideas. He once spent 2 whole weeks building a website for his business. He made the logo, picked the perfect colors, wrote every word. Then, he never launched it. Why? He told me, if I don't publish it, no one can hate it. That hit me hard. Because I've done the same thing. Maybe you have too. We think we're avoiding a task, but really, we're avoiding a feeling. So let's get one thing straight. Once and for all, you're not broken. You're not weak. You're not lazy. You're human. And if you've been caught in this loop, you're not alone. In fact, you're probably way more capable than you think. You've just been carrying more weight than most people see. And maybe you've been trying to push through it all with willpower. But willpower wears out fast. What you really need is understanding. And that's what we're going to do, piece by piece. So, what is procrastination really? Because it's not just not doing the thing, right? If that were it, we could just set a timer, take a deep breath, and get it done. But procrastination is messier than that. Sneakier. Sometimes it feels like waiting for the right moment. Sometimes it feels like needing to rest just a little longer. And sometimes it feels like doing everything except the one thing you need to do. I remember this one morning. I had a deadline, a real one. I needed to write just 1 page. One. But what did I do instead? I went grocery shopping. Then I cleaned my bathroom. Then I spent 20 minutes rearranging the spice rack. I wasn't being lazy. I was busy. But I was busy avoiding. And that's the first truth I want to share. Procrastination doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing anything that keeps you from what matters most. It's not always about lying on the couch or taking naps. Sometimes it's productivity in disguise. But deep down, it's fear. Fear of failing. Fear of looking stupid. Fear that you'll try your best and still not be enough. That's hard to face. So your brain, trying to protect you, offers something else. Something easier. Safer. It says, hey, let's do laundry first. Or, let's scroll for 5 minutes. Or, we'll start after lunch, after coffee, after just one more YouTube video. Sound familiar? Yeah. You're not alone. Let me tell you about Jordan. Jordan's a photographer. A good one. He had this idea for a photo series that would explore identity and memory. It was powerful, meaningful, but he never started it. Every time he got close, he'd think of all the reasons why it might not work. I don't have the right lens. I should wait until I'm less busy. What if no one gets it? So instead, he took on small jobs. Headshots, product shoots, things that paid but didn't challenge him. At some point, he told me, I think I'm scared the project in my head won't live up to the one in real life. That's procrastination. It's not about laziness. It's about emotional risk. And here's something you might not hear very often. The more you care about something, the more likely you are to procrastinate. Because the more it matters, the more pressure you feel. It's like your brain says, this has to be perfect, or don't do it at all. So you wait, and wait. And sometimes, you wait so long that the thing you cared about starts to fade. But there's good news. If you're procrastinating, it means you care. That thing you're avoiding, it matters to you. It might scare you. It might feel overwhelming. But underneath it all, there's something you want. That's worth paying attention to. One more thing. We all procrastinate differently, and for different reasons. Some people do it because they're afraid of failure. Some because they don't want to disappoint others. Some because they're perfectionists. And some because they've never been told they're allowed to try and mess up and still be worthy. So, the next time you catch yourself putting something off, don't ask, what's wrong with me? Ask, what am I protecting myself from right now? That question, it changes everything. Because it invites compassion, not shame. And that's where real change begins. So, let's talk about something tricky. The little lies we tell ourselves when we procrastinate. They don't sound like lies at first. Actually, they sound kinda smart. Logical, reasonable, but those thoughts, they're sneaky. They feel helpful, but they keep us stuck. Let's break a few of them down, one by one. Lie number 1. I work better under pressure. Ah, yes. The classic. Look, I used to believe this one hard. I would wait until the very last minute to write papers, prep presentations, do anything important, and sure, I get it done. But you know what else I got? Anxiety, exhaustion, and work that was just okay. Not bad, but not me at my best. One day, a professor said to me, you don't work better under pressure. You work faster. That's not the same thing. Boom. It hit me. Because rushing through something just to meet the deadline, that's not being a genius under pressure. That's survival mode. And deep down, I knew if I had given myself more space, more calm, I could have done better. But I was afraid to start early because then I'd have no excuse if it didn't turn out great. Lie number 2. I'll feel more ready later. Oh man, how many times have I told myself that? I just need to be in the right mood. I'll start after I clean the house. I'll feel more focused after lunch. But let's be real. That feeling? It rarely shows up. There's no magical future version of you that suddenly wants to do the hard thing. Most of the time, the only way to feel ready is to start doing it, even just a little. Lie number 3. I need more time to plan. Planning feels productive, right? You make lists, color code your calendar, watch more tutorials. But sometimes, planning becomes procrastination in disguise. I've seen people spend 3 weeks planning a 10-minute task. And hey, planning isn't bad. But if you find yourself stuck in prep mode forever, that's fear talking. Fear of doing it wrong. Fear of not being perfect. Fear of it being real. Lie number 4. It has to be perfect. Woo! This one's big. Perfectionism is often the most polished lie we tell ourselves. It sounds responsible, like we're just being careful. But perfection isn't about doing your best. It's about being afraid to be seen as not enough. And so, we delay, tweak, rewrite, delete, until we don't finish anything at all. I had a friend, Tessa, who was writing a children's book. She spent a year editing the first 5 pages. She said, I just want it to be perfect. But in the meantime, she never finished the story. And guess what? No one can love a book you never publish. We tell these lies to protect ourselves from embarrassment, from failure, from that awful feeling of, I'm not good at this. But all they do is build a wall between us and the thing we actually want. So what can we do? Start noticing the lies. Not with judgment, but with curiosity. When you hear yourself say, I'll do it later, pause. Ask yourself, is that true, or is that fear trying to sound reasonable? You don't have to push it away. Just notice it. Name it. Because once you can name the lie, you can choose something else. So let's be real. Breaking out of procrastination doesn't usually come from one giant breakthrough. It starts with something much smaller. Something that, honestly, might feel silly at first. But those tiny, almost too simple actions, they can change everything. Let me take you back to when I was stuck on a big writing project. Every time I opened the document, my chest got tight. I'd stare at the blinking cursor, then slam the laptop shut and go fold laundry. One day, I made a deal with myself. Just write one sentence. That's it. Not a paragraph, not a whole outline, just one sentence. So I wrote one, then another, and within 10 minutes, I had 3 paragraphs. I didn't plan for that. I didn't push for that. I just gave myself permission to start small. And that changed everything. Here's the thing. Action creates clarity. Action creates momentum. Action builds confidence. Not thinking, not planning, not waiting for motivation to show up and carry you. Just action. Tiny, doable, unglamorous action. Ever heard of the 2-minute rule? It goes like this. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. But there's another side to it. If something feels too big, shrink it down until it takes 2 minutes. Want to work out? Just put on your shoes. Want to write a report? Just open the doc. Want to clean your room? Just throw one thing away. And if that's all you do, fine. But 9 times out of 10, once you start, you'll keep going. Because the hardest part isn't finishing. It's beginning. Let me tell you about Alex. He's a high school teacher. Smart, funny, full of good ideas. But every time he sat down to grade papers, he froze. So I asked him, "What's the very first step you do when grading?" He laughed. I open the folder. So I said, "Cool, just do that. Just open the folder every day at 3 p.m. That's it." He thought it was dumb, too small to matter, but he did it. And within a week, he was grading more consistently than ever before. Not because he got more motivated, but because he lowered the bar. That's the magic of small wins. They build trust between you and you. They say, "Hey, I know you're scared. I know you're tired, but we're still moving." Even if it's just one tiny step, it counts. And when you repeat it, it builds momentum. The good kind. The kind that says, "I can do this," even when the big picture still feels far away. So if you're feeling stuck today, ask yourself this: what's the smallest next step I can take? So small, it feels almost too easy? Then do that. That one email, that one note, that one dish, because progress isn't made in leaps. It's made in inches, and those inches, they add up. So here's the part we don't talk about enough. Sometimes we're not procrastinating because we're disorganized or lazy or easily distracted. Sometimes we're procrastinating because we're hurting. There's this invisible wall inside made of fear, doubt, maybe even shame. And every time you get close to doing something that really matters, that wall shows up. It's not loud. It doesn't scream. It whispers, "You're not ready. You're probably not good enough. Why bother? It's going to flop anyway." You don't argue with it. You just freeze. You grab your phone, you make a snack, you open 10 tabs, you avoid, and all the while, you tell yourself it's just a bad day. But it's not just the day, it's the story behind it. I remember a girl named Melissa. She wanted to go back to school. She'd been out of college for almost 10 years, raising 2 kids, working late shifts. She filled out half the application, then stopped. Every time she tried to finish, she felt sick. Not because she couldn't do it, but because something inside her kept saying, "You're too old. You're too far behind. You're not smart enough." She told me, "I think if I apply and they say no, it'll prove everything I've feared about myself." That's emotional resistance. And man, it's powerful. You might feel it too. That weight in your chest when you try to start, that fear of messing up in front of other people, that quiet sadness that whispers, "Maybe I'm just not the kind of person who finishes things." It doesn't matter if it's a tiny task or a big dream. The resistance feels the same: heavy, sticky, invisible, and trying to push through it with discipline, it rarely works. Because this isn't about time, it's about pain. So what do? You slow down. You listen, and this might sound strange, but you treat that scared part of you like a person. You say, "I see you. You're trying to protect me, but I'm going to take one small step anyway." That one step, it could be opening the file, asking for help, sitting with the discomfort for 2 minutes instead of running from it. You don't have to be brave all the way. You just have to be brave enough in that moment. Because here's the thing: you don't need to be fearless. You just need to stop treating fear like the boss. You don't need to believe you're amazing. You just need to believe you're allowed to try. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to show up as you are. Messy, uncertain, real. That's where change begins. All right. let's talk about something a lot of people misunderstand: willpower. You hear it all the time. You just need more discipline. Or, if you really wanted it, you'd make it happen. And sure, willpower has its place. But here's the truth: willpower wears out. It fades, especially when you're tired, overwhelmed, stressed, or just human. So if your whole plan depends on feeling motivated every day, you're probably setting yourself up to feel like a failure. Not because you're weak, but because you're relying on something that doesn't last. That's where systems come in. A system is something you set up once so you don't have to decide every time. It removes friction. It lowers resistance. It creates a path. And most importantly, it doesn't care if you're in the mood. Let me show you what I mean. Back when I was trying to write every morning, I kept telling myself, tomorrow I'll feel ready. Tomorrow I'll start earlier. Tomorrow I'll focus better. Spoiler alert, I didn't. So I changed one small thing. I made a rule. Laptop on the table by 8 a.m. no matter what. Not write 2 pages or finish a draft. Just sit down, open it, be there, and you know what? Once I was sitting there, the writing happened. Not because I forced it, but because I had already created the space for it. That's the power of a system. It catches you on the days when your brain says, nah, not today. It holds your spot, so you can just show up. Want to see a few simple systems in action? Here's what they can look like. Time blocking. Pick a time for the task and make it sacred. Don't leave it vague like later. Later becomes never. Habit stacking. Attach your task to something you already do. Right after you make coffee, sit for 5 minutes and journal. After brushing your teeth, review your to-do list. Environment cues. Want to read more? Put the book where you'll see it. Want to work out? Lay your clothes out the night before. Make the right action easy as. And obvious. Accountability. Tell someone, even if it's just, hey, I'm trying to write every morning this week. That tiny bit of social pressure, it helps. Now here's the part most people miss. Your system doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to work for you. Don't build a fancy routine you hate. Don't copy someone else's morning schedule just because it looks productive on paper. Start small. Start honest. And build from there. Let me tell you about Darren. He's a graphic designer, crazy talented, but always behind. He tried timers, productivity apps, even those fancy focus playlists. Nothing stuck. Until he created one rule: start designing before checking email. That's it. No conditions, no exceptions, and within a month, he was finishing more work than ever. Not because he changed who he was, but because he changed what came first. That's a system. So here's your question for today. What's one tiny system I can build that makes starting just a little bit easier? Because motivation is great, but it's not dependable. Systems, they're your backup plan. They don't need you to feel strong. They just need you to show up. Let me ask you something, and really think about it. When you procrastinate, what do you say about yourself? Do you call yourself lazy? Unmotivated? A mess? Someone who always ruins everything? Yeah, me too. We don't just delay tasks. We build identities around our delays. We turn "I didn't do it yet" into "I'm just not the kind of person who ever gets it done." And you know what? That story, the one you tell yourself, it becomes heavy. You carry it into every new project, every new idea, every fresh start. Even when you want to change, that old voice comes back and says, why bother? You always quit anyway. And honestly, It's exhausting. But here's what I want you to know. That story isn't truth. It's just repetition. It's something you've heard, maybe since childhood, maybe from a parent, a teacher, an old boss, or even your own thoughts on bad days. But just because it's familiar opposites doesn't mean it's you. You can write a new story, one choice at a time, one small win at a time. I remember a guy named Eric. He once told me, "I'm just not a finisher. I always start strong and then disappear." He said it like it was a fact, like gravity. But here's what happened. He made a new rule for himself. Nothing dramatic, just 10 minutes of focused work every morning before checking his phone. 10 minutes. 3 weeks later, he finished something he'd been putting off for almost a year. And when he told me, he smiled and said, "Maybe I can finish. I just never gave myself the chance." See that? One action shifted the story. So what's your story? Really? What do you believe about yourself when it comes to discipline? Productivity? Creativity? Consistency? Are you carrying labels that no longer belong to you? And if so, are you ready to let one of them go? Not all at once. Not forever. Just today. What if today, instead of "I'm a procrastinator," you said, "I'm someone who's learning to begin"? Because you are. Every time you show up, even for 5 minutes, you're proving the old story wrong. Every time you face the fear and move anyway, you're building a new identity. Not someone perfect, not someone who never struggles, just someone who's rewriting what it means to be you. So here we are, the end of this little journey. And I want to pause for a moment just to say, look at you. You made it this far, not because you suddenly became perfect, not because you fixed everything overnight, but because you cared enough to keep showing up. And that's everything. We live in a world that praises flawless execution, neat habits, zero inboxes, crushing goals. But real growth? It's messier than that. It looks like missed days, awkward restarts, moments where you almost gave up, but didn't. Progress isn't a straight line. It loops and stumbles and doubles back, and still, it counts. I want you to remember something. You don't have to be perfect to move forward. You just have to be willing to begin again and again, if needed. Because every time you return to the task, every time you take one small action, even when it's hard, you're building something. Not just results, but resilience. Let me tell you about Kayla. She used to think she had no discipline. She'd start a project, make it halfway, then disappear, and beat herself up for it. One day, she tried something new. Instead of aiming for every single day, she just promised herself 3 times a week. That was it. Some weeks she hit 3, some weeks only 1. But she kept coming back. And over time, the story shifted. She stopped calling herself inconsistent. She started calling herself in progress. And that gave her space to keep going. So I want to ask you, gently, what does progress look like for you? Not for your boss, not for your parents, not for that voice in your head that keeps yelling, "Not good enough." But you. Maybe it's 5 minutes of deep focus. Maybe it's sending that one scary email. Maybe it's not giving up today. Even if yesterday was messy, that's progress. And it's real. This isn't about becoming a productivity machine. It's about becoming a little more kind to yourself. It's about remembering that you don't need to earn rest or push through everything or do it all alone. You're allowed to ask for help, to move slowly, to try again, and again, and again. If this series spoke to you, even just one part of it, I hope you carry it with you, not as pressure, but as a reminder. You're not lazy, you're learning. You're not broken, you're building. You're not behind, you're becoming. And if this helped even a little, I'd love for you to share it. Click like, send it to a friend, and hit that subscribe button so we can keep growing together. Thank you, truly, for spending this time with me. Let's keep moving, one honest step at a time.